Okay. Awesome. So, welcome everyone. I can't see you guys, so I feel like I'm just talking by myself. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to put it in the chat or something, so that I can respond to them. The most important part of this is being able to answer your questions. But so today we're going to be talking about business model canvas. So, also called BMC. It's a very common word that goes around in the business and entrepreneurship world. But we're going to kind of talk about a little bit of the basics, right? So what is a business model? So a lot of people think that a business model is simply the way to make a company financially viable. And it's a little bit more than that. So the business model is actually kind of the heart of your company. If the idea itself is the brain, the business model is the heart, because not only does it make it live by being financially sustainable, but it also allows to position the company in a way that it's both its objective, its activity, are all driving the resources in order to implement certain goals. So the way we think about it is basically pushing in all functioning principles and values in order to actually move forward the company. So it's very kind of easy to think of a business model as being something that can simply be, how do we make money? It's a lot more than that. It is about what about the company is not going to make it only unique, but also how are you going to drive this company for your idea to have an utmost value proposition. So why is it important to have a business model, you would say? First of all, it has to be part of the equation from day one, right? So it can't be, your business model can't be something that you decide as like a cherry on top. It has to be within the foundation of the way you think about your company in the first place, because it influences everything that you do, from the activities to the revenue streams to the kind of resources that you use, the way that you define your KPIs. It is kind of the sole engine of all of that. And without a business model, you are having a strong risk of basically having a failed company. So an analysis of the value really does start with understanding the necessity of a business model. And all of you are coming up with new ideas, if I understand. So you're at the very kind of early stage of defining a company. And it's really important for you to start thinking now, okay, I have a great idea, but how do I make it viable? And how do I actually make it different from what exists? And so I want to give you a little bit of an idea here. So for example, companies like, so let's take Spotify as an example. So Spotify did not create music. It was already here. Spotify did not create albums. It was already here. Spotify did not create artists. They were already here. Spotify did not create platforms where artists could share music. All of that was already present. What was different about Spotify is their business model. The way that they thought about how to distribute music. So the originality of what they do was not in the idea, because what they were doing already existed, but it really had to do with the business model. How do we distribute music to people and how do people pay for it? Similarly with Deezer, which has something very similar, or Netflix, which is rethinking the way that we distribute multimedia and the way that we distribute movies and series. And so, for example, I don't know if a lot of you know about Westinghouse, but Westinghouse is basically a company that does elevators. So they make elevators, and you would think, what is, interesting or, exciting about a company that makes elevators? What they did is that they actually said that the elevators would be free. So they said, okay, we're gonna actually install the elevator free for you. You're not gonna have to pay for us to have actually an elevator in your building. What you're gonna pay is the kilometer travel of that elevator. So what that means is that they're charging customers per kilometer travel of the elevator. So they install the elevator for free, and they charge you per how many kilometers in trajectory that's the elevator does per day, per month, per week. And so that was a complete new way about thinking about manufacturing and actually adding components to an industrial building. Because before that, you would pay for a company to come put your letter. Once you pay them for any extra services for them to manage it. They came in and they said, no, we're going to take care of all of that. We're going to take care of every single part of that. We're going to build it for free. You're not even going to have to pay to have it in your building. We're just going to charge you per kilometer. And it's very important when you're thinking about your idea to know that no matter how brilliant I'm sure you are, the idea you've come up with, somebody probably already has that idea. Or somebody already probably has come up with something similar. Or somebody's already pretty much trying to do something similar. But a business model can be a true game changer in the way that you distribute your product to your customer and in the way that you actually present your value proposition. So I want to look at the Uber example, because Uber is, one of those companies that we talk about today as being a unicorn, a successful company. They are doing so incredible. They're on top of all of the charts. For some of you who may know, who may not already know, Uber was not profitable for a very long time. Actually, until last year, it was still not profitable. And this year, they're definitely not going to be profitable. But they continued to raise VC money. And the reason why was because their business model in the first place was not to be profitable in their first 10 years. Something that people don't know is that Uber's aim in itself was not to be profitable in the first 10 years. They made it so that they wouldn't be, and that they would continue living off investor money because their valuation would constantly and exponentially increase as they continue to acquire customers and continue to increase kind of the value of the product they are delivering, getting the customer hooked, getting the customer literally addicted to the service in order to have all sorts of information about the customer. So today, Uber actually has a lot of information about your data, about your travel, about how much you travel, where you go, what you do, what time you do it. And the reason being is because from the beginning, their objective was not to be profitable. They wanted to be a company that would provide value first and foremost. And the investors that they chose to be on board, from the beginning, they said, hey, if you're on board on this, just know we're not going to be profitable for the next 10 years. However, our valuation is going to go 10x. And the reason being is because we are going to be the only company on the market that is going to be offering this value proposition that no one else can. So a business model does not mean finding a way to make money the sooner and having to be profitable as soon as possible. That is not what it means. And the second example I'm going to talk about is obviously the GAFAs. So the GAFAs are basically what we call Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. They're called the GAFAs, but they also have Uber and Netflix in them. It basically is about companies that their goal from day one was not monetization. As a matter of fact, their strategy was that monetization should not start on day one, and that they would solely focus on customer acquisition. Google is free. Facebook is free. However, they are billion-dollar companies. You should be able to ask yourself, how is that possible? These companies that I'm basically paying $0 to use, $0 to use. I'm using it for free. I am having a great time. It's connecting me to people worldwide. It's connecting me to knowledge that I couldn't have before, but it's free. I am not paying a single dollar for it. You should be able to ask yourself, what is actually the business model that they have in place? How is it that they can become billion-dollar companies without having a single dollar coming from their direct customers? It is all about rethinking the way that you present the product and what that product is about. The best way to go about it is not always to sell the product. We always think we build a product that's amazing, nobody has done it before, and all of those things. We sell it to the customer. That is the most basic way of thinking about business models. And for that matter, it's probably one of the most unsuccessful ways. The most important thing is for you to be able to think about, how do you take the actual product, which you think is amazing, and that's fine, but how do you get the customer to think it's amazing without you necessarily having to ask them for dollar money? It's important to make money. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying you should turn your product into nonprofit. That's actually the worst thing that you could do for your viability. However, you need to be able to rethink about how can you get the customer hooked. Does that mean you have to make them pay from day first? Does that mean that the customer should pay? You should really be able to think about how do you get customer acquisition up? And also, how do you get it that your product becomes so valuable that if tomorrow you decided to increase the price, your customer would still fall for you? And that is about value proposition. And so we're going to go next to actually getting a lot deeper into the business model. So in the next slide, I actually want to go through every single component of what makes a business model and why do we call it the canvas, right? So why is it that when you get into an acquisition program, when you're thinking about building a company, everybody's asking you to fill out a business model canvas. And right now you're doing this boot camp and you have to come up with ideas and they're saying you should fill out a business model canvas. The reason being is that the business model canvas is the actual fundamental step in not other people understanding what you're doing, but in you understanding what you're doing. If you're able to fill out this canvas all thoroughly, putting every single information about what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it, and who you're trying to do it for, then you got your idea. Then you know what you're doing. Then if you actually sit in front of a pitch jury, or then if you actually sit in front of an investor, or you sit in front of a client, you know what you're talking about. Until that moment, everything you say remains absolutely vague. If you tell me that you're trying to transform the way that we think about, let's say, the way we transport ourselves, and you tell me that your solution is going to be able to allow me to transport myself 10x faster, it still remains so vague. I still don't have any information about how you're actually going to do it, who you're going to do it for, how much it's going to cost you to do it. Once you can fill out this business model plan, you will actually be able to understand yourself, what you're doing, explain it to your team, to your customers, to your investors, and to any jury that you would be talking to. So the first element of it is customer segment. So customer segment, who is the target? So people will say, well, I'm targeting, pretty much anyone between 25 to 35 that's, a millennial and care about the world. No. Your customer segment has to be as precise as the slice of a pie. If you think of it as a pie as being, every 25 to 35-year-old in the US, for example, the slice of the pie that you are going for should be any person between that age range who is interested in this specific question, who has already spent money on these kind of things, who have already invested time and efforts into understanding this, who has already contributed to these kind of activities, who have already bought certain product in the past. That's my pie. And it's important for you to understand who your pie is. And the reason why is when you start laying out your business, you're going to start thinking about resources, right? So how much money do I put toward advertising? How much money do I put towards posters? How much money do I put around reaching out to people? And it's going to be important for you to understand who the customer segment is, because that's who you should be spending money on. You should not be spending money just on getting people on board. That's not the point. You want the slice of the pie. And that slice has to be exactly as precise as you can get it to be, so that when you're spending resources or money or anything, you are spending it on the right slice. Second thing is your value proposition. So your value proposition is not how well you can do what you're doing and how exceptional you are and how great you and your team are. That's not what it is. Your value proposition mainly is addressed to your customer. So why is it that your customer is going to love this product? What is the value you are bringing to their life? What about their daily routine, or what about their journey, or what about their lives are you changing so much that you are handing them this value, whether it be for free or you're making them pay for it or you're making someone else pay for it? What exactly are you handing to them? And it's important for you to have that nailed down. This second part, the value proposition, if you don't have it nailed down, you're on a deadlock. Then if you cannot actually articulate for yourself and for other people what your value proposition is, I would say change your idea right now. Because it then means that you do not know what is it you are handing to the customer. And as long as you don't know what you're handing to your customer segment, there is no point in developing anything. not a business, not an idea, not a team, not fundraising, none of that. As long as you don't know what you're actually handing to the customer in their hand, there is no way to keep going. The third part is customer relationship. So this is not, everybody's going to say, well, yeah, customer service. We're not talking about that. Customer relationship is how exactly are you going to maintain the relationship with your customer in order for them to continue valuing and understanding your value proposition. And the reason why that's important, it's like if you look at companies like Apple, right, or Uber, their customer relationship is excellent. They know how to directly communicate with you and what best way to actually speak to you or channels to use, a way to present to you things so that you cannot help it but feel appeal to them. Whether you buy them or not is a different thing, but you cannot help but be appealed to the product itself. And that is what customer relationship is about. How do you actually talk to your customer? What words, specific keywords do you use? What are the things that are going, what are the triggers? What are the triggers that are going to be either visual triggers or word triggers or sound triggers or touch triggers that are going to absolutely make them understand from the get-go what you're doing? And that goes us to the number fourth, which is the channel of communication. What are the channels that you're using to reach out to your customers? Whether it be social media, whether it be physical interaction, whether it be different mediums to be able to actually directly get to them. And it's important for you to know that, because once you understand the channels that you have to use, then you know immediately where to direct your resources. If your channel is 85-year-old males who enjoy playing golf, you're not going to use social media to be able to reach out to those people. That doesn't make any sense. So once you understand your customer target set, like your actual customer segments, and you know what your value proposition is, and you have established how you're going to make this customer relationship, the channel should come right away of which channel do you use to communicate with them. The number 5 is revenue streams. How are you going to make money? It's incredibly important. Again, if you are trying to build a nonprofit, you're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing your customer a favor, and you're not doing society a favor. You need to be able to actually build companies that will be financially viable for you to continue doing what you're doing and for you to continue bringing value to the people who you're bringing value to. So you need to establish what are your revenue streams. It doesn't mean it has to come from the customer directly, but you need to know where are those revenues coming from. Number 6 is obviously for you to be able to establish what are the key resources. So the human resources, the advertising resources, the financial resources. What do you have to put in place so that your customer can actually get to this value proposition? And the key resources come after revenue stream, because once you know where you're getting the money out of, then you know how to spend it. You can't do the other way around. You can't decide how to spend money without knowing where it's coming from. No, you need to know where the money is actually coming from for you to be able to decide how and where to spend it. Number 7 is the key activities. So what are the key activities of your business? If I woke you up in the middle of the night and I said, what do you guys do? In one sentence, you need to tell me the key activities of your business. It can't just be we're revolutionizing the world and no, it has to be precise. It has to be concise. It has to be what are the actual key activities that you're doing. And then number 8, your key partners. So who are you working with? Who is going to accompany you on this journey to help you, whether it be collaborations, partnerships, mutual revenue stream agreements. So who can you work with who are either already doing what you're doing, who have a stake in what you're doing, or who understand what you're doing, who could help you get it to it faster and in a more efficient way. And then finally, obviously, what is going to be your cost structure? So your cost structure is important because once you have established all of these little pinpoints, now you can lay out your cost structure, where you're going to spend money, where's the money coming from, how can you double down on it, if you need investment, if you need, a loan, if you need to be able to bootstrap, then you can actually completely lay out the cost structure. Before that, it's very difficult and impossible to do so because everything you're doing is based on assumptions. And the reason why I would really, really, really push you to get this business model canvas done as soon as possible is that if you continue building on your solution without doing this, you are wasting your time. I can tell you that right now. I can tell you that tomorrow. you are wasting your time. You're going to build something, you're going to get in the middle of it, you're going to already have spent it and actually invested a lot of time, your time into it. You're going to start thinking about these pinpoints. Some of them are going to mismatch, or some of them are not going to be aligned. And then you're going to say, shoot, I'm like 24 hours into this. I have changed my mind. I want to do something different. And here am I, like, completely clueless, because my solution is actually not a fit for what I'm trying to solve. So do yourself a favor. You and your teams go through every single component of the business model canvas. Make sure that you're answering every single one of these questions to the best of your ability, to the extent that you actually understand what you're trying to do and get it down on paper. Once you have that, then please fly with your MVP, work on your MVP, develop it, go for it, because then you know you're building the right thing. Until you have actually filled the business model canvas, you are only speculating and you're only building it based on assumptions. And it's important for you to get those like dark spots cleared right now so that you can understand the thing you're building. So I know that a lot of you are still at the early stage of these ideas. So I am going to give you the opportunity to ask questions. I don't know what the structure exactly is. I'm going to ask some help from Yolanda, but the point is that you are supposed to be able to fill out these questions. And if you want to email me to ask me questions, please feel free to do so at Marem, so MAREME at draperuniversity.com if you have any questions specifically related to the business model. But the best advice I could give you and the best thing I could do for you is to give your time to actually get it down. So get the business model done. And then if you have questions, and start asking, but just start on it right now. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask them in the chat. I don't know exactly how questions that you would like. Okay. Okay, so we don't have any questions as of now. The slides, please, Elida, please make sure that you share the slides with them. I have no problem with them having access to the slide and actually having access to the canvas and being able to work on it directly. And so like I said, I gave you guys my email. Definitely start on it. Really start on it. Start on the business model is so important in you being able to make actual progress in what you're trying to do. And the more you put it off, the more likely you are to come in front of big mistakes at handy. And although it's just a boot camp and you're coming up with ideas, these ideas could really, 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 really change a lot about how you think about things and what you may be doing tomorrow. So give it your 100 fullest percent and really try to see how you can put it together with what you're doing right now. So start on the business plan. Make sure, again, key important parts: customer segments, value proposition, revenue streams, channels of communications, customer relationships, extremely, extremely important. Resources, key partners, again, very, 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 very crucial. And then cost structure. Think about those things, be able to put them down on the paper. If you want, like, screenshot the slide, print it out, just write it down on paper, but make sure that you have those things done in order for you to go forward with your solution. Okay, so that'll be it for me. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask. So email me or send me a request on LinkedIn with questions that you may have about it, and I'll be more than happy to help you with it. And Elida, unless you have anything else for me, any questions, that will be it for me.